Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to another live stream in this session about Lord Chaitanya in Sridhar Mayapur. And we are about sorry, something's very loud here. I need. Okay. So, okay. Welcome again to this live stream about Lord Chaitanya in Sridhar Mayapur. We heard already in the other sessions why Krishna actually came to earth again in this Kali Yuga as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we heard in then another story how he actually came. How were the surroundings? Who welcomed him when he came? And today we will delve into his childhood pastime. In some of his childhood pastimes, we will hear three little stories about Lord Chaitanya as a toddler, very small, a baby and toddler age, and then a little bit older. So let's start. The first story is playing at the time when little Nimai, we also heard about the story how Nimai got his name when he was a child, and later also when he was in his Pandit times he was called Nimai, but we also heard about the story how he actually got the name Nimai. Here, I can delete it, okay. And so we are now in a time when Nimai started to crawl. When you have some experience with little babies, you know the first time they're just being with their mom. The mom is carrying them around, maybe some other relatives, and slowly they widen their circle of movement. Some babies have different techniques. Some babies start rolling, some babies start rubbing to one place to another, and then they start crawling. And in Chaitanya Bhagavat, actually, it is described that little Nimai, he was actually very fearlessly discovering the house in his crawling stage. So he fearlessly crawled from one room to another, looking what was going on there, who was there, and who he could maybe engage with. So the relatives also heard all the time where he was, because most of the times Mother Sachi.
There's something rumbling all the time.
Rumbling?
Yeah, with the microphone.
I don't know.
Maybe you're touching it somehow?
No. Rumbling?
Continue.
Okay. Maybe I put it. What is rambling? I don't know what is rambling. I hope it stops now. So Nimai was crawling, and the relatives could hear actually most of the time where he was, because he had most of the time ankle bells. Mother Sachi decorated him with sweet little ankle bells. They were clinging like ding, 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 ding. And so when he was fearlessly crawling through the house, Mother Sachi could hear him, and all the other relatives, they could hear him. Where's our little Nimai? I hear the ankle bells. So he is there and there and there and there. One day, it happened though that a snake slithered through the courtyard. It's nothing actually unusual in India that suddenly snakes are slithering through the courtyard. Sometimes they are just like harmless little garden snakes, but sometimes they are actually quite big and dangerous. And Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that this snake who was now crawling through the courtyard was actually very big. It was so big that a child like Nimai's age could sit on the snake like a throne. So when you imagine a baby maybe like this size, and then a snake who can like crawl up and make a kind of throne for him, it must be quite big. It's not just a little garden snake. So, and this kind of snake was slithering through the courtyard. But Nimai wasn't actually afraid when he saw the snake. He didn't start to cry, or he didn't crawl away to his mom. He actually went to the snake. He crawled to the snake and wanted to play with her. And he actually started to play with her. He actually not only touched her or piqued her, I don't know what else he did, but I know that he actually sat on this huge snake like on a throne and was feeling quite comfortable. There was no sign of fear. There was no sign of being frightened. He was just like, hey, we found each other here. Let's have some time together. Finally, actually, when the relatives walked by and saw that Nimai was playing in the courtyard with this huge kind of snake, they got frightened a lot. They freaked out, and they cried out to Garuda, 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 come and help. Nimai was looking at them. What is going on? No need to be frightened. Everything is okay. I'm just here with the snake. There is no need to be so frightened and cry out for Garuda. But actually, of course, the relatives knew this is a quite dangerous situation. This snake could maybe bite Nimai at any time, and then their shining little Nimai, their sweet Nimai, would be gone. So they didn't want this, of course. So they were frightened, and they were calling out for Garuda. Why they were calling out for Garuda? You may ask, you may know. So Garuda actually is the carrier of Vishnu, and he has the body of a huge snake, a huge eagle who eats snakes. So they were crying out for Garuda, that Garuda comes and eats the snakes, fights the snakes. There are actually many stories about Garuda, how he's like fighting snakes or eating snakes and chasing snakes. So while our little Nimai was sitting actually very relaxed and calm on the snake, the relatives cried out, Garuda, 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 and all this commotion and all this crying out actually was too much for the snake, and she started to slither away. Chaitanya Bhagavat describes this was actually not a normal snake. This was actually Anantashesh. Anantashesh is the snake of Mahavishnu, who is laying on a snake bed in the milk ocean. And so he wanted to come, and of course Anantashesh heard about Lord Chaitanya coming to earth, and like all the other higher living beings, all the other demigods heard, and so also Anantashesh wanted to visit his Lord in the form as Lord Chaitanya on earth in Kali Yuga. So he came and visited as this huge snake now in the courtyard, but the others, of course, didn't know. But Nimai, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of course, he knew, and he actually wanted that Anantashesh was staying with him. He didn't want that he now slithers away because of all this commotion. So he tried to stop him. But as soon as the snake slithered away, all the women came and just grabbed Nimai and were holding him in their arms and blessed him with a long life, and were just happy they had snatched Nimai out of the fangs of this dangerous snake, and they sprinkled him with Ganges water and chanted protecting mantras. They were even hanging like little talismans, I hope this is an English word, like around him for protection. So chanting mantras for various body parts, and we're just happy he was out of the clutches of this fierce, dangerous snake. But all the time they were chanting their protective mantras and hugging him. Nimai tried again to come out of them and tried to follow Anantashesh, to stop him, to be longer with Anantashesh, but he was stopped all by all the women. They were just stopping him, protecting him, and marveling his beautiful face. And in this way, Anantashesh slithered slowly away out of the courtyard, out of Nimai's sight. But this was the first incident. My first little story about Nimai as a little. Is it already a toddler when they are crawling? I don't think so. It's still a baby. When the crawling stage is still a baby. So the snake was visiting him. Anantashesh was visiting him, and he displayed his beautiful, calm, relaxed being to Anantashesh, and they had some time together. The next story actually also tells about some visitors. Now we are actually in a time when Nimai started his first shaky attempts to walk. So after this crawling, then the babies, they hold themselves somewhere, and then they stand up and then try to balance themselves while still holding on something. And when they feel quite confident, they start doing their first steps. Very shaky, and they of course cannot walk long distances. They walk just 1-2 steps and then bloop, falling down on their back again, and then they go up again and try again to walk. So Nimai is now in this kind of age, just with the first shaky attempts to walk. It was a day when Mother Sachi was sitting on her veranda of the house, and Nimai was resting on the lap. Jagannath Mishra was in a room next to the veranda, some adjoining room. He was taking a nap there. Sachi Devi was sitting on the veranda. It was a very peaceful, quiet, tranquil atmosphere. And like so often, Mother Sachi was just admiring her son's extraordinary beauty. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The courtyard changed somehow. Also, Sachi Devi felt suddenly some lightness and some happiness in her, which wasn't there before. Also, the courtyard seemed kind of brighter than it usually was, than it was just some seconds before. So Sachi Devi was wondering, what is going on? Who is responsible for this transformation? Because, people can change the atmosphere. You may have noticed when you are in a room with a very grumpy person, it makes something with you. It may change you that you also even be grumpy or annoyed. And if you are in a room with a very happy person and jolly person, it may change your mood as well. You may become also lighter and happier. And if you're grumpy and sometimes a happy person comes in and cheers you up, it can change your mood as well. But this change of atmosphere also happens when very spiritual, advanced personality comes suddenly to a place. They can come to a place and even everything is like before, like you do what you did before, and the surrounding is like you did before, but suddenly there's a lighter mood, something, yeah, a little bit more happier, something which is not so heavy if you're doing some daily tasks. So these personalities can really lift up the atmosphere of a place. And Sachi Devi, knowing this, was wondering, okay, here is some kind of change in the air. Where is it coming from? So she looked around, but she couldn't see anyone. But suddenly, she saw celestial beings in front of her. She saw residents of the higher planets suddenly filled the courtyard in front of her. Some had 2 heads or even more heads. Some had armors and shining weapons. Every one of these celestial beings were decorated very, very beautifully. They were shining, they were bright. These beings were accompanied by brahmanas who were constantly chanting mantras. And when they appeared in front of Sachi Devi, she wanted to get up, and she wanted to go to her husband to call him, to show what's going on here. But she couldn't move. She couldn't move her body. Then she wanted to scream. She wanted to shout for Jagannath Mishra, but there was no scream coming out. There was no tone coming out. It was just a silent scream coming out of her mouth. So she was totally kind of paralyzed. She couldn't move. She couldn't talk. She was just sitting there and could just see the scene unfold in front of her. She could just look at these beautiful beings in front of her. And not enough that they just appeared in front of her. Now one of them came to her and took Nimai. So you have to imagine, you're there, you cannot do anything. Suddenly there's beings appearing in your house, in your courtyard, and then they take a child. They take your child, but they had a beautiful golden throne with them and a bathing platform. So they were just taking Nimai and putting Nimai on this bathing platform. Beautifully decorated, gold, jewels, everything. Some of them started to chant mantras, and others started now a full-fledged bathing ceremony, an abhishek. Like yesterday, Nityananda Trayodashi. If you have ever watched an abhishek, it's like out of the world. All kind of different liquids are poured over the Lord. And this is what the higher beings, the demigods, did now with this little Nimai. They bathed him with milk. They bathed him with yogurt. The mantras were chanting. So they performed a full-on abhishek. If you don't know what an abhishek is, please go to Mayapur TV and watch yesterday's program about Nityananda Trayodashi. You can, have an idea about what a beautiful abhishek is about. So Mother Sachi was witnessing all this. She saw these heavenly beings now bathing her son with all kinds of liquid. And she saw that actually Nimai liked it. He enjoyed being bathed in milk, being bathed in yogurt. He looked quite happy when they did that. So Mother Sachi was just amazed. She couldn't believe what is happening in front of her eyes. Finally, the demigods were finished, and they washed Nimai with clear water. They dried him, they dressed him, and they then put him back on the veranda. Nimai, still in a stage of hardly able to walk, he says clumsy steps, now walked towards Sachi Devi, and then Sachi Devi heard ankle bells. Clearly coming, she could notice that these sound, cling, 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 from ankle bells clearly came from the feet of Nimai. But she was wondering, on that day, she hadn't put any ankle bells on Nimai. So where was the sound coming from? She could hear it's coming from the feet, but he was not wearing any ankle bells. So why Sudevi was wondering about this? Why I hear this ankle bell sound? I didn't put any ankle bell sound. So she was wondering. Nimai turned around. He didn't went to her. He turned around and went straight back to the heavenly beings. He went straight back to them and motioned them to chant Hare Krishna and sing and dance, make a beautiful kirtan. And of course, my dear ladies and gentlemen, they did. They started a beautiful kirtan. Something so beautiful that it brought everyone in a state of incredible happiness and joy. I imagine it like, have you ever heard a kirtan which was really touching your heart? Like the kirtaniya is singing and you feel this kind of change in your heart and your heart softens and maybe even tears suddenly come to your eyes and you don't know why. It's just something very, very beautiful. I imagine a kirtan like that, but 1,000,000 times multiplied. It must have been very, very beautiful because it brought everyone in this ecstatic, joyful state of incredible happiness. Even Nimai, even little Nimai was so happy. And then Mother Sachi witnessed something extraordinary. You remember? Nimai is actually in a state where he hardly can walk. Some steps and then falling back on his backside. Getting up again, some steps, falling back on his backside. Now Mother Sachi witnessed how this little Nimai was dancing, throwing his legs in the air, like swaying in the beat of the kirtan and stretching his arms in the air, dancing. And she couldn't believe it. How is this possible? How suddenly her little son is just dancing like this? He can hardly walk. This was too much for Mother Sachi. She couldn't check her emotions anymore. It was just too much for her. She lost consciousness. She fell unconscious. She couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't just witness the scene anymore without doing anything, without saying anything. So she blacked out, lost consciousness. When she lost consciousness, naturally she fell on the ground. And from this bang, when her body touched the ground, Jagannath Mishra woke up. He wanted to inquire what was happening, what was this bang sound. So he came out of this room and then he saw Sachidevi lying on the floor. So he came to her, and when she regained consciousness, he was asking, what was going on? Why is everything okay? What happened? Mother Sachi looked around. There was Nimai playing in the sun in the courtyard, but there was nobody else. She didn't see anyone. Then tears started coming from her eyes. She said, Pati, Pati, Pati. She was really in a lot of emotions. She cried and cried and cried, and Jagannath Mishra tried to calm her down. He hugged her. What can I do for you? Why are you crying? He was asking. Finally, she could check her emotions, and she started telling him. There came the celestial beings, beautiful, beautiful, and they had this bathing platform, and they took Nimai and they started to bathe him like with milk and yogurt, and they dried him after, and then they made a kirtan Such a kirtan, our son was dancing with them. He was dancing, he could hardly walk, and here I saw them dancing with these beings. But now nobody is here. Maybe I have just dreamed this. Maybe this wasn't real. Maybe it was just a dream. I don't know. When they looked around, there was nothing. Not a sign of anyone even being there. Not a drop of water, not some spilled yogurt or not some spilled milk. The courtyard looked like it always looked, and not like a big crowd of visitors were just here. So she doubted herself very, very much. Had this really happened? Or was it just a dream? And so while they're talking like this, and while they were like looking around in the courtyard, Sachidevi just said, okay, maybe it was just a dream. It must be just a dream. Then suddenly, both of them heard the ankle bells again. They could clearly detect that it came from Nimai's feet, but he didn't have any ankle bells on. But both of them heard the sound. So Jagannath Mishra then concluded, you know, my dear Sachidevi, these celestial beings, they can come and go as they want. They can come, they can perform an abhishek, and if they want to clear up after themselves, they can just do it like this. They don't need to bring a broom, they don't need to make all this kind of commotions. They just like, tuck, everything is clean. Usually they're invisible to our eyes, and they can make themselves invisible like if nothing happens again. So Jagannath Mishra concluded, it seems like we have a really exalted son, a really respected personality. How fortunate are we that this little boy, this little personality took birth in our family. And then they both just looked at Nimai. They were looking at his black curly hairs, which shaped his beautiful face even more beautiful. They looked at his lotus-shaped eyes, which reminded them on Gopal Krishna. They looked at his nice red lips, on his broad chest, and his beautiful limbs, and his arms who were actually like reaching till the knees, and they were just looking at the beauty of their son and marveling about it, and were wondering, who is this personality who came to our house, who gives us so much joy, this personality who gives us so much happiness. In this way, they were wondering, marveling around about their little son, and this was the end of the story. This was the end of Nimai gets an abhishek from the higher living beings. It's one of my favorite stories. But I have one more. Sorry if this was loud again. I have one more story. Let me drink before. Ready. I'm just seeing your comments here. One last story for today. about Lord Chaitanya as a child in Navadvip. So now Nimai is at an age where he can already walk and where he actually can walk even alone. He was roaming around. His circle of movement widened even more, and he was walking alone through the city. One day, while he was walking around, still actually quite small, two thieves saw him. They saw this little Nimai walking alone in the street, and he was actually dressed beautifully and with some golden bangles. So these two thieves thought, let's steal the jewelry from this little boy. So they came up with a plan how to steal the jewelry, and when they came up with their plan, they finally came to Nimai, just grabbed him, telling the words, "Oh, here are you. We were looking for you everywhere. Now let's come quickly home." They grabbed him with words like this, set him on their shoulders, and walked away. Nimai, of course, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knew their plan, knew what they were actually doing, but he was okay with taking a little stroll through the city, so he said, "Yes, okay, let's go home." The street was very, very busy. So there were a lot of people on the street, but nobody actually noticed that these two thieves and Nimai didn't belong together. They thought Nimai is with his, they thought the child is with their actual protectors. They didn't notice that something was wrong, which is, I think, kind of unusual. Then, like I said before, Nimai was really an eye-catcher. He was really like everyone who usually saw him, marveled at him, marveled at his beauty. But this time, these two thieves could just go with him through the city. Nobody noticed that something was off. So some, kind of bewilderment took already place here. So nobody detected that actually a kidnapping was going on, and the thieves just hurried home. Their plan was, we go home, we go to our hiding spot, there we will remove the jewelry from the child, and then we become rich. So while they were hurrying to their place, they were already making up in their minds how rich they would become when they take these golden bangles and sell them, and what would they do then. So their greed was really like growing like anything. But what did our little Nimai do during this? He was just carried away by two strangers. Was he worried? Was he crying? Was he trying to escape? No, he wasn't. He was just sitting on the shoulders and were laughing. He was enjoying the walk through the town. But the thieves, they were actually worried because, of course, they knew they did something wrong. So they were worried, and they thought it needs to be done that they calm down the child. And how you calm down the child, they thought, we give him some sweets. So they gave him some sandesh and tried to calm him down, even it was not necessary at all. So they gave him sandesh and said, we will be home soon, we will be home soon, we're almost there, we're almost there. So in this way, the thieves had run far, far away to their hiding spot. But of course, after some time, the relatives in Jagannath Mishra's home, they realized Nimai isn't there. And they were shouting for him, Vishwambar, Nimai, where are you? Come home, come home. And they were looking everywhere, and they were restless, and they were desperate. And Chaitanya Bhagavat describes they are like fish throwing out of the water, being thrown out of the water. So they were totally restless, they were totally in distress. And what are devotees doing when they're in distress? They're remembering Lord Govinda. This is what the relatives did. Jagannath Mishra, Sachi Devi, all the relatives in the house of Jagannath Mishra, they remembered Lord Govinda, and they prayed for the safety of the child, for the return of the child. Meanwhile, the two thieves with Nimai on their shoulders, suddenly they got a little bit bewildered. They were still thinking they're going in the direction of their hiding place, but actually they were going directly to Nimai's house. They were bringing the child actually really to his own home. But these two thieves didn't realize some illusory potency of the Supreme Lord was playing here his tricks. He didn't want that his relatives worry any longer, so he bewildered these two thieves. They were actually thinking they're going to the hiding spot, but actually they were bringing Nimai home. And when they reached Jagannath Mishra's house, they were still thinking, oh, now we are in our hiding spot. Now we can let down the child and take all the bangles from him, and we become the richest of the rich. And he said to Nimai, okay, now we are at home, in your home, and now we will let you down. Nimai, yeah, of course, let me down. Everyone in the house was in great distress. They let their heads, the heads were hanging down. They were in utter despair. Everyone was sitting morose or searching. But as soon as Nimai was on the floor, when the thieves let him down, so as soon as he was down, he ran to Jagannath Mishra. And when Jagannath Mishra saw his little boy, a joyous cry came out. It is described that the cry was like shaking the house, so happy and joyful. And then everybody became full of life again. They were feeling quite dead without knowing where their little Nimai was. Now seeing him again and seeing he was safe and sound and not hurt and back home, their lives returned to their bodies, and they were hugging him and kissing him, and Ganga and mantra and protection and jubilation. With all this jubilation, boom, the illusory energy from the two thieves were gone, and they realized, oh, this is not our hiding spot here. This is actually the house of this little boy. So they quickly ran away from Jagannath Mishra's house. When they were far away, then they were wondering, wow, what was this? What was just going on? This was a strange incident. Who tricked us like this? Why we went there and not to our hiding spot? And I'm sure Goddess Durga must have really saved us today. And I could feel some incredible happiness inside of them, which actually came because they were serving the Lord, because they took a Lord on a stroll through the city, but they didn't know. They just felt this happiness, and they were just glad that Goddess Durga saved them from being catched and disposed as thieves. So they were just marveling and wondering, and they had performed great service for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which in return they got this incredible happiness. In Jagannath Mishra's house, meanwhile, after all the commotion, a little bit calmed down, finally someone asked, "Who brought you back? We want to thank him. We want to give him maybe some gifts." And then some person said, I saw two people coming with the child. They just put Nimai down and then they left. I don't know where they actually went. So everyone was amazed why they went away so quickly, why they didn't wait and let us thank them. And then they asked Nimai, who brought you home? What happened? Who brought you back? Then Nimai just said, yeah, I went to the Ganges, and on my way home, I lost my way. I didn't know where to go. I just wandered around the city, and then these two people came, and they picked me up, and they just brought me here. They just brought me home. And everybody was like, Really? Wow, that's so nice. Thank you. This is like this. The scriptures are actually never wrong. There is Krishna, and his invisible hand is protecting the old people, is protecting the children, like our little Nimai, and is protecting the helpless. So, thank you. The scriptures are never wrong, and Krishna is protecting you. And this is how Nimai performed in his childhood his miraculous deeds, which actually nobody can really understand. Oopsie. Not at that time, and also not today. We can just pray that with some grace of the Lord, we might be able to understand deeper and deeper and get some spiritual insights, what it actually all really means. We can listen to the stories again and again from other personalities as well. We can read about these stories again and more getting insights and realizations who actually the supreme personality of Godhead is. And with this, I would like to end today's story time, but it's not an end forever. Next week, we will hear a little bit more about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes when he was a baby. No, not a baby, but when he was a child in Mayapur. So thank you very much for being here with me in this live stream and this story time. And I hope to see you all again next week. Hare Krishna.